12 drivers on the grid. Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta is the venue. Only one, of course, can be crowned as the winner. Let's see how the grid lines up for this brilliant race that I'm sure is set to come our way, and it's going to be Noah Lanuza who will line it up on pole position for the very first time, his debut event for Mercedes-AMG, and he starts at the head of the field with Donovan Parker for Ferrari alongside. Angel Enestrosa heads row 2 for Porsche, Adriano Corazza alongside in the Toyota Supra. Next up is Harold Velson in the Lexus. They've got no points so far this season, and Mazda also looking to try and add to their tally, sitting third in the championship. Mosso Nunez in 7th place with Randall Hayward lining up P8, second in the championship at BMW. 9th is Trent Jeffrey for Honda, but the championship leaders Subaru with Danny Solis at the wheel for this event lining up only in P10. Then Simon Rosenberger is in 11th place with Celso Filo, the Brazilian driver, lining up in 12th position right at the very back of the field. Now, medium and soft tyres available for the drivers, and interestingly here, Parker, we've got all of the drivers who are starting on the medium tyre, so not any divergence in strategy.
Well, apparently they heard what I thought and just did the exact opposite. That's what everyone thought. Was that, hey, whatever he says, I'm going to do the opposite, so that makes sense. But hey, we'll see how that plays out. We saw some of the Wizards, what they had put together in terms of strategy. We'll see if this pays off to have those mediums first.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if you might see someone going for a pretty unique strategy, maybe going for a shorter stint on that medium tyre, trying to get them off earlier, perhaps after only a half.
If you can make the softs last.
Exactly.
That'd be the key.
If you can make the softs last.
You'd have to defy what we thought was 8 or 9 laps, maybe, that you can make them last.
Hey, never underestimate these Gran Turismo competitors. They are incredible at just thinking on their feet and adapting to these conditions and circumstances. And, you know, if you're a driver that's starting a bit further down the field and you've got progress to make up through that field, there is an opportunity to make it. Let's get ready then to go. The grand final for the Manufacturers' Cup for Gran Turismo World Series 3 here in LA is underway. Make it. Let's get ready then to go. The grand final for the Manufacturers' Cup for Gran Turismo World Series 3 here in LA is underway. It's Lanuza who leads the field down towards turn 1, followed by Donovan Parker, followed by Angel Enestrosa, followed by Adriano Corazza. A rolling start will spread that field out, so no dive bombs into these first few corners. But let's see how it looks as we get ready to go through that first sector and on towards the back straight for the first time. But nice and clean through those first couple of turns. Exactly what we're expecting for Noah Lanuza. He, of course, is the driver who's punching the hole in the air in front for the field that's following behind.
And expect the field to sort of compress once we get to the back stretch there, sort of towards the end of the back stretch for sure, as they're able to draft a little bit here as we head down into turn 6. This sets up into turn 7. You just have to consistently nail this turn 7 corner. You don't want to be enticed by the car in front of you to overdrive that corner and allow the car behind to get a run on you.
Let's see what happens then. We come out of that double apex right-hander, so Lanuza it is that leads. Donovan Parker there, though, is very close behind him. We know that Ferrari is actually pretty handy in a straight line, so will we see any slipstreaming moves being made? We're coming in towards a pretty big braking zone of that chicane, and if you sat down the order like Samuel Cardinal is, you need to try and make these moves while the field is bunched up. He's using the initiative. He's got the inside line.
Overcooked it a bit.
A little bit late on the brakes. Leans on him on the outside of Valson there. And the order very
by the carpet.
Who's that third and to go. The grand final for the Manufacturers' Cup for Gran Turismo World Series 3 here in LA is underway. It's Lanuza who leads the field down towards turn 1, followed by Donovan Parker, followed by Angel Enestrosa, followed by Adriano Corazza. A rolling start will spread that field out, so no dive bombs into these first few corners. But let's see how it looks as we get ready to go through that first sector and on towards the back straight for the first time. But nice and clean through those first couple of turns. Exactly what we're expecting for Noah Lanuza. He, of course, is the driver who's punching the hole in the air in front for the field that's following behind.
And expect the field to sort of compress once we get to the back stretch there, sort of towards the end of the back stretch for sure, as they're able to draft a little bit here as we head down into turn 6. This sets up into turn 7. You just have to consistently nail this turn 7 corner. You don't want to be enticed by the car in front of you to overdrive that corner and allow the car behind to get a run on you.
Let's see what happens then. We come out of that double apex right-hander, so Lanuza it is that leads. Donovan Parker there, though, is very close behind him. We know that Ferrari is actually pretty handy in a straight line, so will we see any slipstreaming moves being made? We're coming in towards a pretty big braking zone of that chicane, and if you sat down the order like Samuel Cardinal is, you need to try and make these moves while the field is bunched up. He's using the initiative. He's got the inside line.
Overcooked it a bit.
A little bit late on the brakes. Leans on him on the outside of Valson there, and that might cost him a little bit in terms of the stewards having a little look, because it was a fairly robust and aggressive overtake on the opening lap, and it's left Valson vulnerable to the threat of Mosso Nunes in the McLaren.
He absolutely sent it there into the chicane, got to the inside, showed his nose, but then just waited till he saw the BMW brake and then got to the brakes there. Obviously overcooked a little bit, maybe a tiny bit of contact. We'll see what the stewards have to say.
Well, we saw, of course, different cars being quick in qualifying relative to what we've seen in some of the racing conditions. You see Lanuza there. He's really pushing the limits here in this first one, just kicking up a little bit of grass at the start of this second lap, and I wonder whether that might leave him a bit vulnerable. Maybe he's just overdriving in these first couple of laps, pushing the car maybe a bit too much and just making a few mistakes, because even though your car might be quick in qualifying, there's no guarantee that that translates to a quick race car.
And that's what Donovan Parker was loving to see there, was him pushing just a little bit further than he wanted to, maybe a little bit of understeer through those S's. That's allowed Donovan Parker to be right on his tail as we get this long back straightaway. We saw the move there by Cardinal down to this braking zone. That should be the typical place you're going to see moves at this racetrack.
Yeah, let's have a look then. Donovan Parker with the slipstream, with the advantage, and with now the race lead. He comes into the chicane, and now it's Ferrari and Donovan Parker in front. So the USA lead here in Los Angeles with the Italian machinery down in towards the final couple of corners we're about to come, and Carrazza is right on the back bumper of Angel Nostroza, who's in that unfortunate position of trying to attack but also having to look at his mirrors to try and defend at the same time. Carrazza's got the inside line into turn one.
That's a tight one.
Yeah, you can't really make a move stick through there unless you've got a winning dance partner, and Carrazza fairly robustly gets his way up and into third place for Toyota.
That was beautiful, great racing by both drivers to give a little bit of room there for Nostroza, and Carrazza there to get to the inside and stay committed through turn one. That's a really tough pass to make, but they did it easily.
It's sort of a bit of a stalemate where all the drivers have now started on this medium tyre. I have to say I am quite surprised for that, because if you're Subaru, if you're BMW, you need to make the progress while the field is bunched up, you would have thought, and surely going for the soft tyre would have maybe been a different strategy. I suppose the converse to that is that you're going to be on a slower compound tyre later on in the race, and it might leave you vulnerable.
Well, we already know that we thought they would do it one way and they did the opposite, so they might figure out. We have no idea what they're going to do, but we'll find out in real time with all of you watching as this unfolds. I think, when we go back to that last lap with Donovan Parker going by Lanuza, that was a message to Lanuza. This is the straight line speed I have in this Ferrari. He made that pass before they got to the braking zone. Yeah,
well, a bit of a sort of drafting train, I should say, rather. You've got down this back straight here as well, because Cardinal, though he closed up onto the back of Nostroza, of course, has the slipstream, being punched in the hole in the air in front of him by Lanuza. Hayward here is vulnerable here to Philo as well, as he looks his way through the final couple of corners. It's pretty close down the bottom end of the field in this race, and Hayward and Rosenberger are under investigation for a collision, so I wonder if that's why we picked up that battle. Maybe something's kicked off at the end of that last lap.
He was a little slow, he was off the line at that point, so something happened there through the chicane in 10A and 10B where they were able to get together. He was forced off to the side, so we'll have to see what the result of that was.
Samuel Cardinal, quickest man though, out on the circuit last time around. He's driving the Mazda, currently sitting in P5, just half a second away from Angel Nostroza as it stands at the moment. Let's have another look then. What happened here to, well, this is Donovan Parker actually on Lanuza for the race lead. So Ferrari versus Mercedes-AMG down this back straight, and he made that look quite easy, actually.
You could just see the straight line speed there. Utilized the draft, of course, had the speed, and got it done before the braking zone. That's the type of pass you love to make happen because it was simple.
Yeah, really nicely done there for Donovan Parker. And the question is now, he's got the lead of this race. Can he pull away? Can he build an advantage over Lanuza and over the rest of the field and try and sort of run his own race?
And when we spoke to him earlier today, he was really worried about the left rear tire of this Ferrari, though. That's one of the things he said. I know it has the speed, but I'm worried about beating up that left rear tire, especially through turn one. This final corner here, you see the car puts a ton of energy to the left side. These are high speed, highly committed corners that just abuse that left side tires, and therefore he's just definitely thinking about taking care of that left rear.
Yep, no doubt about it. So through the first sector we go, and this is what we're used to seeing in these sort of longer form races. About 45 minutes in total we're expecting from lights out to the checkered flag. And it's going to be interesting to see how this one will work out, because you end up with a bit of a slower start to the race, but then it really comes alive at the end as you get the divergence in strategies. What we're expecting, about 8 laps or so on the soft compound of tyre, whereas on the medium tyre they'll go a little bit longer, but of course they don't have the same pace underneath them. They're about 0.8 to a second or so a lap slower than them. Of course everyone's on the same compound of tyre now, but are you going to get someone maybe diving into the pits early? If they can eke those soft tyres out just a lap or two longer, that could be the difference between winning a race and losing it.
Yeah, who's willing to be the riskiest and be first on those soft tires is really the game here right now, is how far do you want to push these mediums, and then how early do you dare get on those softs and hope that they can last as the field compresses again down in the backstretch chicane. There's 10A, 10B into the final corner. You can just see how the draft keeps these cars so compacted right now, and it just puts the pressure on someone like Donovan Parker, who's trying to focus, run his race, focus on his lines, hitting his marks right now, but knowing that if he has any mistake there off of turn 7, they're there to pounce.
Karatsa on the back, on the back of Lanuza. The problem is though, it's such a one-line first sector here though, isn't it? You can't find your way through there.
Well, we saw the pass he made into turn 1, which was excellent, but once you get to turn 2 or 3, it'd be a massive mistake by the driver in front of you if you're going to get there. Here's Simon Rosenberger down in, this is how he got into Haywood, just outbroke himself. Haywood was an innocent bystander there, turned into the corner already. You can see him shaking his head. It's not what you want to do.
No, big disappointment there for Randall Haywood, and you wonder whether the stewards might be taking a look at that. I have to say, also for Subaru and for Danny Solis, it's not going his way at all. He's 5 seconds now off the back of Simon Rosenberger. Made that 10 seconds. He's clearly made another mistake on this lap, and he's just dropping like a stone, and clearly he is struggling out there on the circuit, and that's not what Subaru needed, because this could be a race that if they finish down there, they'll of course be scoring no points, and it could cost them the lead of the championship going into the World Finals. On board there, or looking rather, I should say, Adriana Karatsa in 3rd position, and Helena Stroza sitting there in P4 for now. You can see the tyre wear at the moment. First chance really to look at it. The front-engined rear-wheel drive cars actually looking pretty even compared to some of the mid-engined rear-wheel drive layouts that we've got. The sort of big outlier really is Donovan Parker, who's got a bit less rear tyre relative to the other drivers who are close behind.
And he told us that's what he was worried about with this Ferrari, and sure enough, it's showing up right now. You can see there was only 2 cars that were below the 70 percentile there on the rear tires, and he was one of them, down at 68 as we got off that graphic. So definitely abusing those rear tires right now, and that means he's just having to drive that car as delicately as he possibly can. You're trying to basically extract speed, but just not slide the rear tires, not put energy through the rear tires. It's an incredibly tough thing to do no matter what race car you're driving, and a racetrack like this, where it's putting a lot of energy through those rear tires, you just have to try and drive that car as straight as possible.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Looking here then at Adriano Karatsa, we ride on board as he has got a face full of Noah Lanuza. We come down this back straight. Inestrosa and Cardinal sitting pretty close there behind and just doing a good job of keeping them honest. So for some of these teams here, Parker, looking at the standings going into this one, of course Subaru, as we know, they lead it by 2 points over BMW. Nissan though, they're only half the points away from Subaru, for Mazda, for Porsche. There's a great opportunity for some teams to capitalise here.
There is, especially what we saw in qualifying. That was really what opened everything up for a lot of these teams that have struggled in the first 2 events to have this chance in the 3rd event. As we look at Karatsa, look at the inside, Lanuza again, he's been doing that lap after lap, just poking that nose here into 3. Not really a passing attempt as much as a message. Hey, I can get there if I want to. I can put that little bit of pressure, and he now falls a little bit back as we go through the S's. He's definitely stronger through that turn 1, turn 2 complex, but does sort of lose a bit of time as we go through the S's into 6 and 7.
Yeah, coming down this straight then into double apex right hand. Let's have a look at another moment here for Danny Solis. We know he's been all at sea. And he had a spin, just got onto the curb, and well, that's dropped him now 15 seconds off the back of the rest of the field. I mean, look, he's laughing because there's nothing else you can do. Nothing else you can do. It's such a shame there for Danny Solis. We know he's a very competitive driver. We know he's got the ability to be at the sharp end of the field in these Gran Turismo World Series events. We've seen it. You don't become a 2-time champion for nothing, but clearly on his return, maybe just nerves, something along the lines of that he's just not performing here tonight, and ultimately it's costing his team.
I just love how you see these battle trains occur in these GT3 cars, and it's not dissimilar to real life. You see this all the time. Having raced in GT3 before earlier this year at the Rolex 24 in Sebring, it was like this all the time. You're in these trains of cars. The way these cars are is just they're so closely aligned. The BOP matching does a great job of creating the performance be so close between the cars, and you get in these trains like this, and it's such an intense form of racing.
You've got sort of a race of two halves here at the moment, haven't you? You've got the first group of 7 drivers who are all, half a second or so relative from one another. Then you've got another 4.5 seconds back to Randall Haywood, who's then got Philo, Jeffrey and Rosenberger relatively close behind. So it's interesting to see how this race is going to play out. And again, I wonder for those strongest start to this race, whether they might try and do a different strategy. This is Philo's move, meanwhile, on Randall Haywood, coming down and in towards that chicane. Nicely done. Used the advantage of the slipstream, took to the inside, and then got through and took that position quite nicely there for him.
Yeah,
so
for these top 3 championship leading teams, manufacturers, they're looking at no points right now, especially that gap between them and the next set of cars, which are the points. So it's going to be, they've got to get going.
Yeah, points are only down to 6th position. And look how tight it now is at the sharp end of this race. Delighted to welcome to the commentary box former champion in the Gran Turismo World Series, Igor Fraga, no less. Igor, great to have you here. First of all, I've got to ask, what do you think of this race? Because it looks like it's going to bubble up to be quite a nice one. I mean, you've got 7 drivers separated by a hair's breadth.
Yeah, so like all the cars' performance, all the drivers' performance have been being really, really close since qualifying. I think Mercedes nailed the qualifying, but the pace, the race pace itself, it's been really, really similar, and all of them are trying to kind of stay together in the back, so they have a chance at the end of the race to really gain some positions.
What's the key going to be able to win this race? If you're sat there now, for example, you're Adriano Corazza, you're not leading the race, but you're in a good position. How do you turn this race into something that you can win?
Yeah, so I think Donovan Parker's pace has been really good, so everyone is following him. So it's going to be difficult to do something right now, to be honest. Maybe I'll try to do something just before going to the pits and changing tires. So after I'm back onto the track, then I can stay behind the fastest car of the race, basically.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out then here for Donovan Parker. You've got Noah Lanuza there, who's in 2nd position at the moment. In terms of tyre wear, do you think there could be a particular factor in this race? Do you think maybe someone who can eke their tyres out for a lap or 2 longer, that might come into play? Yeah,
probably yes. I think we have a different type of cars running. Also, we are considering that the cars are slipstreaming each other, so maybe they are being able to, some of the car being able to manage better the tires, so this could come and play later in the race as well.
So I'm listening to everything you're saying. Do you think Lanuza right there is sort of hanging out behind Donovan Parker at this time, just using that draft down the back straightaway, knowing the speed of the Ferrari, taking care of his tires a little bit? As we look at the tires right now, Donovan Parker down in the 40s for both front and rears.
Yeah, I think Donovan is trying to push as hard as he can. Probably his race pace is good, but then it's hurting its tires, and then all the guys behind is being able to save a lot of tires. You can see, especially P2 and P3 having very good tire wear on the rears, and this probably will come in play later in the race, in the strategy and everything.
Look at Corazza, 64 on the rear tires right there.
That's really
impressive.
good. Yeah, that's really good, and especially considering it's a Supra, so it used to be a lot harder to keep the tires in a good shape, so he's doing definitely a really good job there.
Yeah, you can see they're just sort of sitting there waiting for the right opportunity to pounce at this particular point of the race. We're coming towards that first pit window. Really, again, the tyres, they're getting warm, but they're not quite at that level. But given another lap, maybe another couple of laps or so, and we might see the first drivers beginning to blink. You would imagine, given the difference in tyres, especially for Donovan Parker and his rear tyres, that he's going to be boxing before anybody else in this race.
I don't know, to be honest, because Ferrari has great traction. So even if the car has good tire, more tire wear, maybe it can keep up with the pace because the Ferrari itself have really good traction.
And that's a great answer, because not knowing anything about strategy, that you fit right in up here today here.
Yeah, because the thing is, they're always shown like, you know, the predicted strategy, but there's always drivers that come up with the crazy ideas and different strategy that is not even shown, and they can do like really well.
Wait, you're saying race car drivers being crazy?
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Going down this back straight then here, looking at Donovan Parker, then Noah Lanuza, then Adriano Carazza, who's just sitting there in third place. Ines Stroza a couple of laps ago, who's in fourth at the moment, got a bit of a warning for contact with another car, so must have had a bit of a tap into the back of Adriano Carazza. Carazza has a sort of half look there to the inside to the chicane, but the door's not quite ajar enough for him to walk through right now.
Yeah, he's doing that still out of turn 1. I just watched him do it the lap before as well. He's done that there down into turn 10 chicane. He's just constantly showing that nose a little bit to Lanuza. We saw what his rear tires were like. He's done the best with that. Look at the run he gets here into turn 1. Lanuza goes a little bit further in the corner, but here's that once again better on the exit. That's why his rear tires are doing so well, as we see Simon Rosenberger on pit road.
Yeah, he's the first driver to come into the pits, then he'll go on to the soft tyre. So we're expecting 2 stints on the soft tyre in this race, and Rosenberger in the Lamborghini, the first driver to blink. He's down in 10th position at the moment. What you want when you come out of these pit stops is a nice bit of clear air, which Rosenberger should get. You know, he's got Danny Solis, who's about 20 seconds or so down the road, but Solis has now come into the pit lane, so he should be pretty much on his own, Rosenberger, once he emerges back into the race.
And also it's very difficult when you go out the pits because you were running with worn medium tires and then you put the fresh soft tires. The grip changes. It's very very different. It's huge, and then you have to keep nailing the exactly same lines because you have all the curbs and very technical cornering in the first sector, and a little bit of mistake that you do, you can get a penalty. So you have to be like really precise.
Lanuza defending that move there from Carazza, moved over on the back straight, and Carazza there, though he had extra momentum, didn't have the opportunity to move it, and it's brought Angelina Stroza right into play then here as we come through these final couple of corners, and you can see now is where it's going to start beginning to build. We're coming towards the halfway stage of this race already, and you can see that 10 out of the 12 drivers have not yet made their first out of, well, at least 1, probably 2 pit stops here in this one. So we'll see who is going to be the first of the drivers to blink, and also, crucially, who's going to follow them there as well. Will Parker be the first driver, and will the rest of the field follow suit, or are they going to go off and do their own strategy? Igor, if you were in the pack like this at the moment, what would you be doing?
For me, at this point, probably just make sure that I can stay on the pack and don't do any mistakes, because, you know, if you kind of risk it at that point and you do like a little mistake, you will lose like 4 position in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And we're gonna like ruin your race. So I think it's just stay on the pack, just keep your position, and especially if you're on the top 3, you want to just keep your position because you have probably plenty of chance later on the race.
And I wonder if Carazza's thinking he would be one of the last on pit road. We got that graphic again of his tires. He's 20% better than Donovan Parker there, who's the leader right now. He's done an incredible job saving those rear tires as he does a block here, and Stroza nicely done down into 10, but I wonder if he's going to watch this and see maybe there's a chance there to go a little bit longer and to be able to push on those soft tires harder.
Yeah, coming down through to those final few corners. We're now, again, sort of getting towards that time where you're going to have no choice but to pit over the next couple of laps or so. We can see that Parker's tyres are, as we know, a bit more worn out relative to the other drivers who are behind. That's what we reckon the predicted strategy will be, about 13 laps or so. Well, we're on lap 15 and we haven't seen anybody pitting. Lanuza, though, starting to begin to hold up Carazza. You can see Carazza's just held his tyres in a bit better condition, especially through this first sector of the lap. It looks a bit quicker and a bit more comfortable, really.
Yeah, and also the Supra has a great top speed. It's just that everyone is on a slipstream, so it's very difficult to get like a run through it because exactly. So you try to do something, but you get out of the slipstream, then your car is not faster anymore. So it's a very difficult, and there's a lot of pressure going on there as well because you cannot do any mistakes.
Points for the top 6 drivers in this race, just to remind you. So if you're down to Harold Valson, you'd be scoring points if the checkered flag was thrown now, but there's still half the race left to go in this one, and plenty of time for the complexion of it.
Carazza is really close.
Yeah, this is where we go for that move then, down the back straight, side by side they go, Toyota versus Mercedes. Carazza makes the move really nicely and goes through and into second. Exactly what he wanted to do. Now, are we going to see anybody diving into the pit lane at the end of this one? Parker does. He had no choice. Look at the rear tyres. They would be about as useful as chewing gum on the sole of your shoes after that long in the race. And Parker decides that lap 16 rather I should say, is the last on the mediums and goes on to the soft tyres. I wonder how he's going to work with this.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about like Caraza and other guys that stayed on track. That maybe there's a possibility to do a one-stop, no?
That's what I was thinking.
Well,
I was looking at how much better his tires were. Now he's in the lead. Could go all the way to a one-stop, possibly.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You know, we were talking about the hard tire, the medium tires, I should say, the harder of the compounds versus the soft tires, and the predictive strategy says, soft tires, you've got to get them off after about 8 laps. But like you say, if you can just be really smooth on your inputs, on the steering, on the brakes, on the throttle, and you can eke them out for that little bit longer, maybe you can eke those soft tires out.
And maybe like a two-stop could be faster in the total time, but if you consider like track position and then traffic and everything, maybe one stop is safer because you can just keep ahead, and then even if it's a little bit slower in terms of the total time, it's better.
Look at this.
3 wide for the lead.
That's going to go wrong. They're off into the gravel. The Mercedes goes off down into the chicane after contact between themselves in Astroza as well as Adriano Carrazza, and the upshot is the debutant here at Road America ends up in the gravel trap and loses a huge amount of time. Now Astroza is on the inside of Carrazza down into the first corner. Side by side they go. The Porsche is into the race lead.
Carrazza's fought back here. He thinks better of it. That's just too tight of a corner to go side by side through, and that started all the way back in turn 7. Carrazza just didn't get the run. He actually got a little understeer, got up too far onto the curb, and that allowed those 2 drivers behind him to get a massive draft and get side by side 3 wide down that corner for a place that's only really fit for 2.
Yeah. 3 into 1 doesn't go, and no surprise to see that incident under investigation. I should imagine the stewards will take a pretty dim view of that. I'd love to have a look at a replay and get another angle on that incident in a few moments' time. But we look here at Samuel Cardinal, who's profited from it. He's now up into 3rd place, into the podium positions here for Mazda. Mazda, I remind you, 3rd in the standings at the moment, so they could really take an advantage because Porsche and Toyota a bit further down the order. Toyota 5th in the standings, joint 5th with Porsche, but Lexus also, having not scored any points, would be very welcome for that 4th place finish. Anyway, long way still to go.
And I think there's going to be some drivers that are going to pit this lap because there is some driver that have a very high tire wear. We'll see. No, they keep going.
Yeah,
probably next lap. So I think if you can push like 17 laps on the mediums, one stop is very possible.
Let's have a look then to see what happens. So Astroza's got great momentum. Lanuza there on the outside. Oh, Carrazza moved over by the looks of things.
Yeah. Just a little bit. I don't think at one point there he knew they were about to be 3 wide. He was trying to protect. He didn't know that Noah was there and kind of come over at that time, and that caused the collision.
Well, yeah, that's not going to be much compensation, I should imagine, for Adriano Carrazza and also for Noah Lanuza's mood as well. Let's see what the stewards decide for that one, but I would imagine there could be a penalty coming the way of the Brazilian driver, and that'll be a big disappointment for them, for Toyota, because as we say, 5th in the standings. It was a great opportunity for them to try and build on the points that they could have got over the course of this season so far.
And as I said, like it's been like everyone's so close. Just a single mistake can like really ruin your race. So all the the decision that you make during the race are so important to make sure that you can like capitalize in everything.
You got the sense, didn't you, that it was bubbling up, that something was going to start kicking off.
Especially with the tire starting to be warm. It's very close to the pit window. So yeah. It was where something could happen.
Cardinal into the pit lane then at the end of lap 18. So he's the first of the leaders from that group now to blink in the Mazda RX Vision machine. Comes in and he'll go on to the soft tyre. Everybody else staying out, and the tyres, as we say, I mean, just looking at it from what we can see on our timing screen, they're pretty worn now, especially on the left-hand side. This, of course, being a clockwise circuit, means that the left-hand side of the car gets lent on that a little bit more.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, Donovan Parker, he was always with the clean air, so I think he will have like a big gap compared to the other group that stayed on track. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see the tire wear at the end of the race.
That's a great point, because as we saw that 3 wide movement and battling at the front, that was just slowing them down, allowing Donovan Parker to rip those fast laps.
Well, the question is as well, Parker, as we know, he pitted early on. So is he going to be able to do a one? If everyone else does a one stop in front, can he do a one stop? Has he got the ability to eke those tyres up? Because if he's done 2 or 3 laps, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a huge amount of time left, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and especially that we have tire wear multiplier on those races. So 2 or 3 laps difference. In real life would be like more than 10 laps difference. So it's a lot.
No doubt about it. Yeah, very, very keen to see how this one is going to play out. Igor, thank you so much for joining us and helping us make sense of the middle stint of this race.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here as well.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, absolute pleasure. And now we get the leaders coming into the pits. Inestrosa, Corazza into the box. From the medium to the soft compound of tyres, Lanuza and Artemoso Nunes continue on at the sharp end of this one. Now the question is about Donovan Parker. Where's he going to emerge? You would imagine, because he's been running clean laps and setting very fast laps at that he's going to come right out the sharp end of this. But is that going to leave him vulnerable in the final third of this race? He comes through, he's now in third place, and he's still got, what, 11 seconds for Lanuza up the road. He's in a great position here at the moment. Doesn't mean it's going to last, though.
No, it doesn't. We saw already when we had the recent tire graphic, and as Igor was explaining how fast these tires wear with the accelerated wearing that you have here in Gran Turismo, that he'd already beaten up those tires a ton. And we saw how he had to pit there because the rear tires in that Ferrari just didn't stay on in the first stint. He had to get to pit road. So we'll see if this works out for him, but definitely should have a large gap.
Yeah, let's have a look at Valson versus Artemoso Nunes then, coming down in towards turn 10. That was a nice clean, but that's how you do it, into that chicane.
That's pretty. I like that one.
Yeah, Mosso Nunes in McLaren moves his way up and into fourth place at that point. Now effectively the race leads, we can see Randall Hayward's got a red flashing dot next to his name. That means he's picked up a penalty for one reason or another. We didn't see anything coming up on screen saying he's under investigation, so one would assume that's a track limits penalty. Either way, not what the team that are second in the championship would have wanted to see on their board at the moment. Now, the last of the two remaining drivers, Artemoso Nunes and Noah Lanuza in the McLaren and the the McLaren and the Mercedes, respectively, are still yet to pit. Now they do, and let's see where they are going to emerge in the return of this race. Here, meanwhile, is Donovan Parker, and look at this, he's made this work really nicely here, Parker, because, you know, he had, what, 3/10 of a second advantage.
Yeah.
Now it's up to 6.4 seconds. That's great, but again, we've got to think about the bigger picture here, don't we? Because, as we know, he pitted 2 or 3 laps earlier relative to some of the other drivers around him, and you wonder how vulnerable that might leave him.
Can he make it last? Can he look at this gap and say, hey, wait, what can I do to just take care of these tires right now and try to make them last even further than he thought maybe they could go? We thought that this was definitely going to be a 2-stopper. It looks like most of these drivers here of Corazza and Inestrosa are going to be on this 1-stopper. Is Donovan Parker got the ace in his sleeve? Can he do it?
Well, that's the crucial question, isn't it? I mean, you know, overtaking is one thing, getting past is, closing up is one thing, getting past is quite another. Inestrosa, Corazza and Cardinal, though, you could throw a blanket over them, couldn't you, coming down this back straight? They're so close together. And you wonder whether they might try and work together here instead of fighting amongst one another. They're in that slipstream train at the moment, but are they going to be able to close up onto the back of Parker if they start fighting?
They're pretty pass there by Valson there down into 10. I would think that would be the best plan, but they're race car drivers and they don't normally think that way. It's, I want to be ahead of you. I don't care what it means. I want to be the leader of this pack right now. ZC Corazza once again right on the tail of Inestrosa. I think that it would be smart to be working together to utilize that draft to try and cut down that gap. They've already got about 2 or 3 tenths in that last lap. That would be the smart move right here.
Just seeing on screen there, no further action after that incident there with Corazza, Lanuza, etc., that we saw a few laps ago, which fired Lanuza off into the gravel. So they've deemed that it was a racing incident and nobody was at fault, which...
I agree with that.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
I think when you take 3 cars down into that corner, all the same place, that's a very tough position to be in. They got there because of the draft and all the different movement there down in the braking zone. I think it was the right call.
Well, it's a very good point. I'm not a racing steward. I just stand here and talk nonsense for 45 minutes.
I'm not either, but I'm just going to agree with it.
It's probably the best way to do it. Best way to do it. Donovan Parker, that gap from 6.3 seconds now down to 5.3 seconds. Of course, he's on, as we know, older soft tyres, and that's leaving you a bit vulnerable. Corazza there having a look to the back of Inestrosa, but nothing doing for him at the moment. They've just got to be patient, haven't they, really? Because it's going to come to them in the closing stage of this one. And this is what we're used to seeing in the Manufacturers' Cup races as Parker comes into the pit lane for his final pit stop. So he's doing a 2-stop for
answer.
Yeah, but are we going to get everybody else doing a 1-stop? Can they eke those tyres out? And conversely, they'll leave them vulnerable if they do a 1-stop, because Parker's going to be on fresher rubber.
You see him shaking his head a little bit. Maybe he realizes that the others could potentially just be on a 1-stop.
It's a possibility, but I've got to be honest. I think it's going to be quite difficult to eke out a one-stop. And if it is a one-stop, if you've got someone that has managed to pit onto the soft tyres and hasn't lost that much time, i.e., you would imagine Donovan Parker, that he could close up and just drive right past them in the closing lap, maybe even.
That's what he'd be hoping.
It certainly is.
That's the case.
Certainly is. So Inestrosa then leads the race now, half a second ahead of Adriano Carrazza. Samuel Cardinal there just on his tail as well. So you've got three drivers separated by just a handful of tenths of a second. Then you've got Valson and Mosso Nunez. Where is Donovan Parker? So he's in 9th position at the moment. He's the first or the second driver now to make 2 stops in this race. And he's got a hell of a mountain to climb in terms of making up time, but also he's got to fight his way through a fair bit of traffic up the road there as well, which could compromise him. And that shake of the head might mean that he knows that a possible chance of victory for Ferrari could have slipped through his fingers.
And right now he's about 18.2 seconds back at this time from the lead, so he's got a little, that gap would condense obviously with a pit stop if these leaders were to pit, but we think possibly they're just on this one-stop strategy right now, and therefore he knew it was game over at that point.
So looking here at Samuel Cardinal, as we say, the top 3 teams in this one would love to have the checkered flag thrown now, because they would get some great points on offer. Porsche sitting 5th in the championship with 3 points so far this season. You've got Carrazza for Toyota, they're also joint 5th as well, and Samuel Cardinal for Mazda, they're 3rd in the championship. Harold Valser meanwhile has been given a 1-second penalty for colliding with another car. I'm quite sure if we saw what that was all about, but he's ahead of Artem Mosso Nunez, so I wonder whether that might be what it's all about. The upshot is though, he's coming towards that penalty zone. You see that bar filling up, and he'll coming to that, he'll lose a second, but he'll also lose the time it takes him to get back up to speed. So a second's penalty could easily end up being 1.5 to 2 seconds quite comfortably.
And it's on that long back straightaway where we've talked about just getting a bad run out of turn 7 is worth a couple tenths, let alone having to slow down like that there, and then having to reaccelerate back up to full speed, and it messes up your braking down to 10, so it's a massive penalty.
So, if you're in Inestrosa, your Carrazza or your Cardinal here at the moment, Parker, you've got a nice, comfortable cushion over the rest of the field. Are you going to take that risk and try and do that one-stopper? Is it worth it?
I think it absolutely is, especially what we saw Carrazza was able to do with his tires earlier in this race. He had the best rear tires of anyone, and he's been able to make passes in areas that no one else has. So I definitely believe that this is what he's expecting to do. I think right now, just taking care of those tires right now behind Inestrosa, but hoping that when he gets that chance to strike, it's there on offer. And we've seen him do it down into turn 1. He's done it down to turn 10. He seems to be always looking to poke his nose out just at the braking zone, just to make that driver think for a second, hey, I could get there if I want to. And that's definitely nerve-wracking for Inestrosa.
Yeah, you'd be sat there on the light flashing button, wouldn't you? Trying to distract the driver.
Anything you got in your arsenal, you will utilize, trust me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, 5 laps to go then here at the Road Atlanta circuit, and well, it's anybody's guess as to how this one is going to play out. You would imagine that Donovan Parker, even though he's got fresher rubber, he's got, as we say, a big old mountain to climb to close up the gap that he has now created, courtesy of the fact that he had to pit early. He used up his tyre in the opening stint. It was a great stint nonetheless, you know, to see him at the sharp end of the field in his return to the GT World Series, but the problem with it is that it's left him vulnerable now, and it's cost him ultimately an opportunity of that win after pitting about 2 or 3 laps earlier than these other drivers.
And he's been the fastest car on the racetrack. He's been almost a second faster in the last couple of laps, so he has the speed. As you see him going by Haywood here down into turn 1, just with all that extra grip and the speed that Ferrari has had, trying to make up every position he can right now, pushing as hard as he can. He's got fast lap times, he might just not have enough time.
Yeah, that is the problem there for Donovan Parker. What's the gap now? 8.5 seconds. So he's going to have to hope that they all have to pit in the closing stages of this one. I mean, looking at the tyre wear that we can see on our timing screen at the moment, it's fine. It's not great, and it's going to be slower compared to Donovan Parker, but the gap that he's got to make up over the next few laps is pretty insurmountable, one would imagine.
No, definitely, and I think if you just look there at Carrazza with 59%, that was just the same thing he did in that first stint, and we've seen that they were able to go way further on those tires than maybe we thought they potentially would. So I think this really is the battle for the win right here. It's Inestrosa and the Porsche versus the Toyota of Carrazza. These two have been going at it all race long. Throughout each and every lap here, they've been around each other, and Carrazza's been sort of on the back foot at times, having to make those wild passes, but I do think if he's going to find a place, it could be into turn 1 where he's surprised some drivers early in the race.
And they've kept it pretty calm and pretty respectful up until this point. There's going to come a time where that calmness and that respect is going to start to wane a little bit, and then the gloves are going to completely come off, you would imagine, right towards the end, because it's all good sitting there in the wheel tracks of your fellow opponent and just, you know, doing your own race and letting them run their own race, but eventually challenge for victory that they're going to want to make. This is Donovan Parker, meanwhile, as he ascends his way up ahead of Trent Jeffrey. That is a great move there on the inside, set that one up. Jeffrey there forced to the grass on the outside, and Parker through and into 7th position. I mean, he's closing the gap down to the likes of Harold Valson, but again, it's just going to run out of time, unfortunately, here. It's going to come a little bit too late for him.
And it's such a shame. He did a great job in qualifying. We talked to him earlier today. He had a ton of confidence, was super excited for this event, and felt like if he could be up front, he had the possibility to do it and fight for the win. On pace alone, he had that, but strategy is going to bite him.
Now look at the tyres here then, Parker, because you can see Carrazza, he's got way more rear tyre than Inestrosa, and now Carrazza's side by side. Carrazza will not be able to attack full position going into that chicane. He'll live to fight another day, will Inestrosa, but now we're starting to see the gloves beginning to come off. We're starting to see the aggression here from Adriano Carrazza. He's just bided his time quite nicely with the tyres, and now he looks poised to attack for the race lead. Inestrosa knows that, goes for a defensive line down towards that first corner. That's going to compromise his entry speed and subsequently his exit speed there as well. Forces him a little bit wide. If he can just hold firm and not allow Carrazza to attack, he'll be able to hold it through these sweeping series of corners and live to fight another day. But it's started to get a little bit more interesting, and now it's beginning to build, and Carrazza's looking poised to attack.
You can feel the intensity ratcheting up right now, and that was that move that Inestrosa did, being defensive into turn 1, because he knew Carrazza's been able to get to the inside there towards 2 and into 3, but he can't quite get there far enough beside him to really make a difference. So Carrazza's had to back out of it lap after lap. It's going to take Carrazza trying to get to the inside into turn 1, firing it off in there. Oh, as he got sideways, losing a bunch of time.
Yeah, the big old moment there. That's left him vulnerable here to Samuel Cardinal. So just that one mistake, we were talking about it earlier on in the race when the field was really bunched up, and now it's cost Carrazza a chance of attacking for victory, and might cost him 2nd position here at the expense of Cardinal as well. They run side by side down the back straight into the braking zone of turn 10. Cardinal with the slipstream with the advantage. Carrazza's not going to give this one up though without a fight, and moves his way back through and into 2nd place. Carrazza now needs no mistakes. He needs to be as clean as you like. 2 laps to go at the end of this one here, and Carrazza, if he wants to challenge for victory, needs to get himself onto the back of Inestrosa pretty sharpish.
He's got to get his head down right now in terms of the best laps of this race, the best laps of the day, if he wants to have a chance at going and challenging for victory. There with that just slight mistake, it's put him just too far behind. He's going to have to find something.
But look at him, he's got way more tyre compared to the likes of Inestrosa and to Cardinal as well, especially on the rears. Front's a pretty even Stevens. Let's see whether that proves to pay dividends here though for Carrazza, because if Inestrosa's tyres fall off a cliff in this last lap and a half or so, that could be the one thing that Carrazza needs in order to have an opportunity to look at it then. So we're coming through this double apex right-hander. This was last time around, goes through into the right. Inestrosa carries on okay, and he just gets on the gas a bit too early.
And it's just so easy to do because that corner entices you to roll more speed through the center than it really wants. And as the tires where you're leaning so heavily on the left rear, you're trying to get back to the throttle so early in that corner, even potentially before the apex, to just try and make this straightaway as long as you possibly can. We've seen that throughout the day. That's a very typical thing to see in Road Atlanta, especially on old tires, and it just bit him.
Carrazza starting to come back in towards that slipstream range, and again, what he's going to have to hope is that Inestrosa's tyres fall off an absolute cliff as we come through the final corner to start the final lap of racing here at Road Atlanta. It's Inestrosa that leads, but the tyres on his car are looking pretty second-hand. Carrazza's, they're okay, they're a little bit better in terms of their condition, and now is this going to be the chance for Carrazza to challenge for victory in the Toyota. 1.1 seconds it was across the line, and now 1 lap to go here.
It was about 2 tenths right there. If Carrazza's got that pace in that race car, he's going to have to find it right now. See Inestrosa use a lot of the racetrack. It's another 2 or 3 tenths right there. If he's going to get there, he's going to try and make everything up through turn 6 and 7.
Inestrosa's struggling. You can see him really pushing the front end, kicking up a bit of grass as it was just understeering like a shopping trolley there, just trying to get the car rotated, but he's got no front tyre left. Now Carrazza, he's in the slipstreaming range, and this is the last opportunity. Needs a clean exit out of here.
Power down well.
Inestrosa used the curb there on the outside. Carrazza's going going to have the advantage in the slipstream then. We come down the back straight. It's Porsche versus Toyota. It's Inestrosa versus Carranza in the battle for victory. Inestrosa, though, has got great straight line speed in that Porsche. Carranza closes up, but he's not quite close enough to make a move. Inestrosa defends his way into the braking zone quite nicely, parks the car on the apex, and Carranza can't attack, and unless Inestrosa makes a mistake, as we come down to the final corner, into the final turn we go at Road Atlanta. Inestrosa versus Carranza, Porsche versus Toyota for victory, and Inestrosa wins the grand final in Gran Turismo World Series 3 here in Los Angeles. What a fantastic drive from the Chilean, as Carranza takes second best ahead of Samuel Cardinal. A brilliant grandstand finish to the checkered flag. What more could you want?
That was absolutely awesome. The tires falling off the Porsche, Carranza and the Toyota making every move possible they could, nailing those corners, getting the draft, and they come together right there in the final corners. I've watched a lot of racing in my life. That was sensational.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant there. Angel Inestrosa takes victory in Gran Turismo World Series 3 here in LA for the Porsche team ahead of Adriano Carranza. And you have to give it to Adriano Carranza. That was an incredible drive over the course of that race. But ultimately, that mistake he made on the penultimate lap cost him a chance of victory.
And it's what Igor Fraga was saying up here when we had him up in the booth for a while. He just said it's the smallest little things, the smallest little mistakes that can hurt you when the field is this tight and so closely compacted, especially as we saw throughout this race, those battle trains essentially that occurred, and the field would sort of yo-yo effect and sort of compress back as the tires fell off. You could just sense that the pressure was ratcheting up, and he just made that small mistake that's so easy to do.